right. It looks like it's loading. All right, are we live? All right. Well, hey everyone, good morning. So this is the this is the kickoff event. We are live, and I believe we will also be live on YouTube. So that link is automatically posting to our YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys know we have a YouTube channel. So we're going to start off with a quick message from our sponsors. There's a few videos, so I'm going to, drink my coffee, enjoy.
Software development, shipping reliably and quickly to customers is essential to staying competitive. A key way that organizations are speeding up software delivery today is by implementing continuous integration and delivery pipelines and assembling DevOps teams to shorten the feedback loop between development and production. Because developers can ship code multiple times a day, the frequency of software releases outpaces QA tasks. How can you be equipped to test at the speed your customers demand? This solution is here for the modern software teams that dare to test in DevOps. Mabel is an automated testing service that makes testing easy, reliable, and robust. Request a personalized demo today to see how Mabel can help your team successfully achieve Dev Test Ops. Testing Nirvana.
All right, next up, we've got a couple more.
Parasoft is improving the quality of software around the world by helping organizations strengthen their code in every aspect of software development. For over 30 years, we have driven innovation in the software testing industry through a relentless focus on code quality and stability. We do this by continuously pushing the bounds of how we can automate software testing practices, reducing the testing burden on development and QA teams, and making it simpler for managers and team leaders to understand how code changes are impacting code quality and risk. The Parasoft tool suite makes it easier to produce safe, secure, reliable, and compliant software by automating time-consuming testing tasks and providing interactive reporting and analytics dashboards that you can quickly turn into actionable insights for the team. By deploying the Parasoft tool suite, organizations in every industry can reduce the time, cost, and effort of delivering high-quality software at speed.
In the new world of business, the fast and the agile will thrive, while the slow and the inflexible will be left behind. To compete, you know that digital transformation is a must. You must leverage the cloud. You must turn to methodologies like DevOps. You must innovate software at blazing fast speed. It's a lot of musts. Thankfully, there's Tricentis. We accelerate digital transformation with the most comprehensive continuous testing platform. From the best in-class test automation and test data management to industry-leading performance testing, system simulation, and risk-based testing. With the power of AI, you can rapidly design, automate, and orchestrate virtually any type of test for your business to accelerate software delivery. Built for enterprise scale, it increases speed, reduces costs, and decreases risk. So you can release software faster, fund new growth initiatives, and be even more confident in your success. And when that happens, you bring new products to the market faster, speed innovation, and create more fiercely loyal customers than you ever imagined. It's no wonder that companies like McKesson, Dell, and Mercedes-Benz turn to Tricentis to accelerate their digital transformation. Tricentis. Speed changes everything.
Last one. This might be your favorite, Andy.
Running each of your tests over and over again across Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and IE for desktop, laptop, tablet, and mobile phone viewing, only to be met with slow, fragile tests that are incapable of catching the bugs related to the responsiveness of your application. Traditional approaches to cross-platform testing are inefficient with little to no return on investment, but it doesn't have to be this way. Introducing the Applitools Ultra-Fast Grid, a modern approach to cross-platform testing. The Ultra-Fast Grid allows you to write and execute your test once while validating your application across all of your supported configurations in a matter of seconds. Whether you have 10 tests, 20, or 100, it doesn't matter. The Ultra-Fast Grid will visually test them all in parallel by rendering a snapshot of the state of your application onto all of these various platforms, making verification lightning fast while catching those pesky bugs that are often missed by traditional solutions. So what are you waiting for? Integrate the Ultra-Fast Grid with your favorite automation tool and deliver your app with confidence.
Did you recognize that voice?
Oh, yeah.
That was our keynote speaker from our last conference 2 years ago when we were in person. I think we were the last live, like, for reals conference since the pandemic, and here we are, virtual. It was a tough decision to make to go virtual because, like, what do? We're out here, and so last summer we had a spike of one variant, and then we were like, okay, let's go live. Let's be real in person. And then not so much. So anyway, we decided that we would go virtual. And here we are today. Thank you everyone for joining. It's so good to see you all. I want to do a couple of little quick announcements at the front before we get to Andy's opening. So I'm going to share some content. I know we miss Esther. We miss seeing you in person too. So this is our theme this year is the Wild Wild Test. We always talk about cowboy coders. So we have themes around helping to turn from this wild test of the world into an organized and refined oiled machine that makes things high quality. Hey, Brian, I see you. All right, so the TSQA mission is to get better at our jobs or get better jobs. That's my casual way of summarizing our mission. We're here to promote the local talent. We're here in North Carolina. I'm actually in Florida today, but I'm based in North Carolina. Andy is based in North Carolina. Angie Jones is actually from North Carolina. She was the one talking on the Applitools opening and was our last year or 2 years ago keynote speaker. And then the most important thing is to inspire and be inspired. It's why we go to conferences. It's why we're here. So what I would like and what we have done is employed this AirMeet platform, trying to make it so we can talk virtually. There's a number of tools, and we'll talk about those more in a minute. So the schedule is 2 days. Your ticket gets you access to 2 days. Normally we would do a workshop day and then a session day. But with all of this online things, I don't know anybody else. I get a little fatigued with being on screen. So we've done 45-minute sessions. We've asked speakers to prepare about 30 minutes of content so that you have space to ask questions, interact with others, hit up the lounge, get coffee, check in with work emails, all the things that happen when you're virtual. So check out the different tracks. They're lined up in this way. There's a nice space in the middle of the day for lunch, and then we'll end a little bit early. We know how hard it is to be paying attention. So we want you to have an opportunity to absorb what you're hearing, take notes, and think about how you might apply it in your workplace. So we have 4 platinum sponsors. They are what's making this platform possible. Mabel, Parasoft, Tricentis, and Applitools. You heard their commercials at the front. They each have booths. They will also be in a sponsor track where they'll be doing a white paper style demo of their work. So make sure that you check those out. There will be in session, and it's on the schedule up at the top. You can pop into there, or you can go and visit them at their booth. All right, so this is my favorite slide. I want you to know that this group of humans is probably some of the most amazing, independently motivated, collaborative. They're amazing. Anything that you could possibly need, they're here to do, and they're here to be a part of. As a member of this organization, which you got as part of your ticket, we are asking that you decide to volunteer, or if you would like, we're going to be putting out a poll. We want to confirm this board. I don't know if you remember last year we did it as a vote. That's not really the way it works. We're volunteers. All of these people are donating their time and collaborating in the off hours of their regular 9-to-5 job. So if you're interested in participating in this, we want to hear from you. So reach out to us at info@tsqa.org, and we will absolutely bring you in. So I'm going to publish a poll here. What I'm going to ask is that if you take a minute let me see. Is this how we want it to go? It's published. All right. So what I'm asking you to do is I want you to certify this board, say that, yes, these are the people that, and I'm here to certify them on my part. Plus we get to try out the little poll function. So I'm going to hide this from stage and let it run. And we'll close it at the end of tomorrow. So part of your membership in TSQA provides you a month by month, well, it's depending on our time, right? Volunteer organization. We do a monthly meetup where we bring in top talent and information and ideas that we think are worth sharing. If you can't make it on the night that they happen, we usually record them and post them to our YouTube channel. So please do join that. We've posted that through meetup.com. So if you're not a member there yet, please go join. All right, so next up, the other reason we're here is because of all of the attendees. So we are represented right now. We sold out our conference. We weren't sure because, everything's online. So we sold a limited number of tickets. We lowered the cost tremendously so that we could make it possible to have all this content, but also put it in a way that's more engaging. So we have 67 cities represented. We have 6 different countries represented. I saw this morning, Spain. We have, I know we have somebody from Poland. We have all kinds of people out here. We've got titles ranging from no current employer all the way up through a founder. So if you are at one of these roles and you want to be at a different role, these are the companies that are here today. Go talk to them in the lounge, figure out how you're going to get to that next job or how you're going to really like your current job better. Journey, are you here? Are you ready? I know you were having a little bit of webcam troubles this morning. All right, so AirMeet is Jen, you want to talk to the AirMeet features? Let me see. Can I call you to stage? How does this work? I'm all in. This is a new platform for all of us. So if you're kind of clueless about what's going on, so are we. We're trying to figure it out. Be patient with your speakers over the course of the couple of days. If there's technical challenges, be patient. So there is please fill out your profile. There's a leaderboard that will show how much you're interacting. Plus, you want to just introduce yourself. We have a lounge. There's a couple of question prompts in there. You as an attendee can make your own table and you can ask your own question and start your own discussion. The sponsor booths are available. There's a speed networking session. There's 2. There's one today and there's one tomorrow. We may also open up that option if we find that technical difficulties prevent us from getting someone up and sharing their content. We may start a speed networking session then. We've got hand raising. I've already seen some hand raising. I'm seeing some chat. There's Q&A. I've seen tons of emojis and I'm loving that because so often when I'm presenting and sharing and I've got black screens coming back at me, it's so good to know that you guys are enjoying it, appreciating it. So please do share with the speakers. Let them know that you're paying attention and that you know that you're with them. Raising your hand, you can get called to the stage. So if you have a question and you'd like to interact, you can see who's in it. Everyone has their own way, right? Maybe you don't want to be called to the stage. You can just post it in the Q&A. If you're willing, and the moderators can talk about this when they start the session, if you're willing to come up and talk and have that conversation with the speaker directly, you'll have that opportunity to do so. You've seen the polls function come up, and I think I talked about the leaderboard already. So I hope you enjoy. I can't buy you lunch, but at least there won't be a mac and cheese fiasco. So hopefully you brought snacks. I know that I have my cup of coffee that I will be refilling regularly this morning. All right. So last but not least, I want to introduce you to Andy Knight. Andy is what I'm going to now call my friend. Andy and I have known each other a few years. I often will go out to Automation Panda website just to pull his ideas around BDD. He also has a ton of things in Python, which I am not familiar with, but I know. But I use all your BDD stuff, Andy. I promise.
Right on.
Yeah, you are now at Applitools, right?
True story.
All right. Well, I'm happy to have you here. I'm going to turn the screen over to you. Let's see if we can do this right. Oh, is that your hat?
Yeah. Applitools eyes.
I went with the cowboy theme. All right. I'll turn it over to you, Andy.
Cool. Thank you. Share PDF. I'm going to share my screen momentarily here. Oh my gosh. Did it work?
It did. I can see you. I can
Fantastic.
see you on screen and on screen.
Awesome. Great. Well, hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Susan, for the introduction and for everything you and the other organizers have done for TSQA. And thank you all for coming here virtually to this conference. I feel so honored to be keynoting TSQA 2022. As Susan said, I actually live in the Triangle. This is my hometown right now. And so to be speaking here at my hometown conference is just so amazing. So my name is Andy Knight. You may also know me as Pandy for short. I am the Automation Panda. I'm also a freshly minted developer advocate at Applitools. So be sure to read my blog and follow me on Twitter at Automation Panda. Today, I am super excited to introduce a new idea to you and to our industry: open testing. What if we opened our tests like we open our source? I'm not merely talking about creating open source test frameworks. I'm talking about opening the tests themselves. What if it became normal to share test cases and automated procedures? What if it became normal for companies to publicly share their test results? And what are the degrees of openness in testing for which we should strive as an industry? I think that we as software testers can greatly improve the quality of our work if we adopt principles of openness into our testing practices. To help me explain, I'd like to share how I learned about the main benefits of open source software, and then we can cross those benefits over into testing work. So let's go way back in time to when I first encountered open source software. I first started programming when I was in high school. At 13 years old, I was an incoming freshman at Parkville High School in their magnet school for math, science, and computer science in good old Baltimore, Maryland. All students in the magnet program needed to have a TI-83 plus graphing calculator. Now, mind you, this was back in the day before smartphones existed. I mean, back then, it was cool if you had like a Razr flip phone. That was the trend. So in that time, the TI-83 plus was cutting edge handheld technology. It was so advanced that when I first got it, it took me 5 minutes to figure out how to turn it off. Pro tip, you're supposed to push the second key and then the on button. True story. Anyway, I quickly learned that the TI-83 Plus was really just a mini computer in disguise. Did y'all know that this thing has a fully functioning programming language built into it? It's called TI Basic. True story, it's there. Within the first 2 weeks of my freshman Intro to Computer Science class, our teacher taught us how to program math formulas. Things like slope, circle circumference, rectangle area, the quadratic formula. I mean, you name it, I programmed it. Even if it wasn't a homework assignment, I just loved it. It felt awesome. To me, programming those math formulas felt more fun than playing video games. And if you know me, you know that I was a huge Nintendo fan back in the day. There were two extra features of the TI-83 Plus that really made it ideal for programming. First, it had a link cable for sharing programs. Yeah, it did. There's no Wi-Fi. You had a little tiny little link cable. It looked like an audio cable if you weren't sure what it was. But two people could connect their calculators and copy programs from one to the other. I mean, needless to say, with all my math formulas, I became quite popular around test time. Second, anyone could open any program file on the calculator and read its code. The TI basic source code could not be hidden. By design, it was open source. And so this is when I learned my very first lesson about open source software. Open source helps me learn. Whenever I would copy programs from others, including games, I would open the program and read the code to see how it worked. Sometimes I would make changes to improve it. More importantly, though, many times I would learn something new that would help me write better programs. This is essentially how I taught myself to code. On this tiny screen, all through ripping open other people's code and learning it, all because code was open to me. For the first time, from the moment I wrote my first calculator program, I knew that I wanted to be a software engineer. I had that spark. So let's fast forward a couple years to college. I entered the computer science program at Rochester Institute of Technology. Go Tigers. By my freshman year in college, I had learned Java, C++, a little Python, and of all things, COBOL. Go figure. All the code of all my projects until that point had been written entirely by me. Sometimes I would look at examples in books as a guide, but I never use other people's code. In fact, if you copied code and got caught, you'd fail whatever assignment you were working on. Then, in my first software engineering course, we learned how to write unit tests using a library called JUnit. Wow, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? We downloaded JUnit from somewhere online. I'm pretty sure this was before Maven became big. And we hooked it into our Java path. Then we started writing test classes like this with test cases as methods. And somehow it all magically ran in ways I couldn't figure out at the time. I was astounded that I could use software that I didn't write myself in my project. Permission from a professor was one thing, but the fact that somebody was out there in the world just giving away code for free just blew my mind. I saw the value in unit tests, and I immediately saw the value in a simple, free test framework like JUnit. That's when I learned my second lesson about open source software. Open source helps me become a better developer. I could have written my own test framework, but that would have taken a lot of time. JUnit was ready to go and free to use. Plus, since several individuals had already spent years developing JUnit, it would have more features and fewer bugs than anything I could develop on my own college project. Using a package like JUnit helped me write and run my unit tests without needing to become an expert in test automation frameworks. Yet. I could build cool things without needing to build every single component. That revelation felt empowering. Within a few years of taking that software engineering course, sites for hosting open source projects like GitHub became huge. Programming language package indexes like Maven, NuGet, PyPy, and NPM became mainstays of development. The running joke within Python became that you could import anything. I was living in a future far from swapping calculator games with link cables. When I graduated college, I was zealous for open source software. I believed in it. I was an ardent supporter. But I was mostly a consumer. As a software engineer in test, I used many major test tools and frameworks. JUnit, TestNG, Cucumber, NUnit, XUnit.net, SpecFlow, Python, PyTest. Gosh, wow. Good morning, everyone. Others like Jasmine, Mocha from the JavaScript world, tools like Selenium WebDriver, REST Sharp, REST Assured. I mean, this list goes on and on. Personally, as a Python developer, I use many modules and frameworks in the Python ecosystem like Django, Flask, and Requests. Then I got the chance to give back. I launched an open source project called Boa Constrictor. Boa Constrictor is a .NET implementation of the screenplay pattern. It helps you write better interactions for better automation. Out of the box, it provides web UI interactions using Selenium WebDriver and REST API interactions using REST Sharp. But you can use it to implement any kinds of interactions that you want. My previous company and I released Boa Constrictor publicly in October of 2020, timed with DigitalOcean's Hacktoberfest. You can check out the code on GitHub. It's all there. Originally, my team and I at Q2 developed all the code. We released it as an open source project, hoping it could help others in the industry. But then something cool happened. Folks in the industry helped us. We started receiving pull requests for new features. In fact, we even started using some new interactions developed by community members internally in our company's test automation project. And a year later, in October 2021, we again participated in Hacktoberfest and had even more public contributions. That's when I learned the third lesson about open source software. Open source helps me become a better maintainer. Large projects need all the help they can get. Even a team of core maintainers can't always handle all the work. However, when a project is open source, anyone who uses it can help out. Each little contribution can add value for the whole user base. Maintaining software then becomes easier, and the project becomes more impactful. As a software engineer in test, I found myself caught between two worlds. In one world, I'm a developer at heart who loves to write code and solve problems. In the other world, I'm a software quality professional who writes test software, and advocates for improvements. These worlds come together primarily through test automation and continuous integration. However, throughout my entire career, I keep hitting one major problem. Software quality has a problem with quality. Let that sink in. Software quality has a big problem with quality. Every manual test repository and every test automation project I have ever seen is riddled with duplication. Duplication in steps, duplication in patterns, duplication of flaws. I mean, how many times am I going to see the same 23 setup steps copy-pasted across 149 test cases? How many times am I going to see automation code use static variables or singletons to share things globally instead of better patterns like dependency injection? How many times have I seen a 90% success rate treated as a good day with limited flakiness? How many times have we seen tests not cover something valuable or meaningful? And how can we call ourselves quality professionals when our own work suffers from poor quality? It's oxymoronic. Why are these problems so pervasive? I think they build up over time. Copy-pasting one procedure feels innocuous. One rogue variable may not be noticed. One flaky test is not a big deal. But once these things start happening, teams insularly keep repeating these practices until they make a mess. I don't think giving teams more time to work on these problems will solve them either, because more time does not interrupt inertia, merely prolongs it. The developer in me desperately wants to solve these problems. But how? I can do it on my own projects if I'm really on point. But because my tests are sealed behind company doors, I can't use it to show others how to do the same things at scale. Many of the articles and courses we have on how to do X are also full of toy examples too. And I'm guilty of this because you only have so much time or space or real estate to share something. Trying to show something at scale is much, much harder. So, how do we get teams to break bad habits? I think our industry needs a culture shift. If we could be more open with testing like we are open with source, then perhaps we could bring many of the benefits we see from open source into testing. Helping people learn testing, helping people become better testers, helping people become better test maintainers. Those three things I learned from open source can apply the same to testing. If we cultivate a culture of openness, then we could lead better practice by example. Furthermore, if we become transparent about our quality, it could bolster our users' confidence in our products while simultaneously keeping us motivated to keep quality high. So for the rest of this talk, I'm going to suggest multiple ways to start pursuing this idea of open testing. Not every possibility may be applicable for every circumstance, but my goal for today is to get y'all thinking about it. Hopefully these ideas can inspire better practices for better quality. I see the emojis flowing. I love it. I love it. So, for a starting point of reference, let's consider the least open context for testing. Imagine a team where testing work is entirely siloed by role. Oh my gosh, have we seen this before? In this type of team, there is a harsh line delineating developers from testers. Only the testers ever see the test cases or access the repositories or even touch automation. Test cases and test plans are essentially closed to non-testers due to access, readability, or even apathy. Let's have real talk here. The only outputs from testers are failure percentages and bug reports. Results are based more on trust than on evidence. Now, I'm gonna be straight with y'all. This kind of team sounds pretty bleak. I really hope this isn't the kind of team you're on, but maybe it is. Let's see how openness can make things better. The first step towards opening testing is internal openness. Let's break down some silos. Testers don't exclusively own quality. Not everyone needs to be a tester by title, but everyone on the team should become quality conscious. In fact, any software development team has three main roles: business, development, and testing. Business role looks for what problems to solve. The development role addresses how to implement solutions. And the testing role provides feedback on the solution. These three roles together are known as the three Amigos, or sometimes called the three hats. Each role offers a valuable perspective with unique expertise. When the three Amigos or the three hats stay apart, features under development don't have the benefit of multiple perspectives. They might have serious design flaws. They might be unreasonable to implement, or they might be difficult to test. Misunderstandings could also cause developers to build the wrong things or testers to write useless tests. Have we been in this situation before, y'all? However, when the three Amigos get together and knock heads, they can jointly contribute to the design of product features. Everyone can get on the same page. The team can build quality into the product from the beginning. They can do activities like question storming or example mapping to help them better define these behaviors. As part of this collaboration, not everyone may end up writing tests, but everyone will be thinking about quality. Testing becomes easier because expected behaviors are well defined and well understood. Testers get deeper insights into what is important to cover. When testers share results and open bugs, other team members are more receptive because the feedback is more meaningful and more valuable. They have that context, they have that understanding, they have that buy-in. We practiced the Three Amigos collaboration at my previous company, Q2/Precision Lender. I'd like you to meet my good friend Steve. Steve here was a developer who saw the value in example mapping after we did it together. Many times, he'd pick a poorly defined user story with conflicting information or missing acceptance criteria. Before he did example mapping, sometimes he'd end up burning a whole sprint just to try to figure out how things work. Once he learned about example mapping, he started setting up half-hour sessions with the other two Amigos, frequently of whom I was one of them, to better understand user stories from the start. And boy, he got into it. Thanks to proactive collaboration, he started developing stories more smoothly and more regularly. One time, I distinctly remember we even stopped working on a story because when we got to the user story and that proposition, we couldn't come up with a business value. We couldn't come up with the justification why. And so we stopped. And that saved Steve about 2 weeks of pointless work. Story doesn't end there, though. Steve is now a software engineer and test on that team. He shifted left so hard that he shifted into a whole new role. He's become a champion for quality of their products, and I was blessed to work with him. This dude is a champion. Yeah, send those emojis. Send them. Send them. If we were on stage at TSQA right now, I'd be giving standing ovation, pointing them out in the crowd. So another step towards open testing is living documentation through specification by example. Collaboration, like we saw with the 3 Amigos, is great, but the value it provides can be fleeting if it's not written down. Teams need artifacts. Pardon me. Excuse me. Teams need artifacts to record designs, examples, and eventually test cases. One reason why I love example mapping so much is because it facilitates a team to spell out stories, rules, examples, and questions. And you spell them out onto color-coded cards that you can keep for future refinement. Stories become work items. Rules become acceptance criteria. Examples become test cases. And questions become spikes or future stories. To learn more about example mapping, check out this article after my talk. During example mapping, folks typically write cards quickly. An example card describes a behavior to test, but it might not carefully define a full scenario. It still needs further refinement. Defining behaviors using a clear, concise format like given, when, then makes behaviors easy to understand and easy to test. For example, let's say we wanted to test a web search engine. The example could be to search for a phrase like panda. Surprise, surprise. We could write this example as the following scenario. Given the search engine page is displayed, when the user searches for the phrase panda, then the result page shows links for panda. The special given, when, then format is known as the Gherkin language. You've probably seen this before if you've been around software quality. Gherkin comes from behavior-driven development tools like Cucumber, but it can be helpful for any type of testing. Gherkin defines testable behaviors in a concise way that follows the arrange, act, assert pattern. You set things up, you interact with the feature, and you verify its outcomes. Furthermore, Gherkin encourages specification by example. This scenario provides clear instructions on how to perform a search. It has real data, which is the search phrase panda, as well as clear results. Using real-world examples and specifications like this helps all 3 Amigos understand the precise behavior. Behavior specifications are multifaceted artifacts. They are requirements that define how a feature should behave. They are acceptance criteria that must be met for a deliverable to be complete. They are test cases with clear instructions. They could become automated scripts with the right kind of test framework. And ultimately, they are living documentation for the product. Living documentation is open and powerful. Anyone on a team, or even outside the team, can read it to learn about the product. Refining ideas into example cards, into behavior specifications, becomes a pipeline that delivers living doc as a byproduct of the software development lifecycle. SpecFlow is one of the best frameworks that supports this type of openness with specification by example and living doc. SpecFlow is a free and open source test automation framework for .NET. In SpecFlow, you write your test cases as Gherkin scenarios, and you automate each with given, when, then steps in C#. If you know me, you know I'm a SpecFlow fanboy. And also, cool thing, SpecFlow is owned by Tricentis, who is sponsoring TSQA. One of SpecFlow's niftiest features, however, is SpecFlow plus Living Doc. Most test frameworks focus exclusively on automation code. When a test is automated, then only a programmer can read it and understand it. Gherkin makes this easier because steps are written in plain language. But Gherkin scenarios are nevertheless stored in the automation repository, inaccessible to many team members. SpecFlow plus Living Doc breaks that pattern. It turns Gherkin scenarios into searchable doc sites, accessible to all 3 Amigos. It makes test cases and test automation much more open. Furthermore, notice how LivingDoc provides test results for each scenario. Green check marks indicate passing tests, while red X's indicate failures. Historically, testers use reports like this to provide feedback in-house to their managers and developers. Results indicate what works and what needs to be fixed. However, test results can be useful to more people than just the internal team members. What if? What if test results were shared with users and customers? I'm going to pause and say that again, because it might seem shocking. What if users and customers could see test results? Think about it. Open test results have very positive effects. Transparency with users builds trust. If users can see that things are tested and working, then they will gain confidence in the quality of the product. If they could peer into living documentation, they could learn how to use the product even better. On the flip side, transparency holds development teams accountable to keeping quality high, both in the product and in the testing. Open test results offer these benefits only if the test results can be trusted. If test results are useless or failures seem rampant, then public test results could actually hurt the ones developing the product. This type of radical transparency would require an enormous culture shift. It may not be appropriate for every company to create public dashboards with all their test results, but it could be a strategic differentiator when used wisely. For example, when I worked at Q2, we shared this very LivingDoc report with specific precision lender customers after every 2-week release. It built trust and kept the contracts moving. Plus, because the LivingDoc report included only high-level behavior specs with simple results, even a vice president could read it. We can share these test results without sharing the automation code. One moment, I need my boba fix. So let's keep extending outward. In addition to sharing test results and living docs, folks can also share tools, frameworks, and other parts of their tests. This is where open testing truly is open source. We already saw a bunch of open source projects for test automation. As an industry, we are truly blessed with so many incredible projects. Every single one of these logos represents a team of testers who not only solved a problem, but decided to share their solution with the world. Each solution is abstract enough to apply to many circumstances, but concrete enough to provide a helpful implementation. Collectively, the projects on this page have probably been downloaded more than 1 billion times. And I'm not joking. I looked at some of the download statistics. And if you want, you could read the open source code from any of these, just like it was a calculator program. Some organizations even share their full test suites. For example, NASA is actively developing a data visualization framework named OpenMCT, short for Open Mission Control Technologies. NASA uses OpenMCT to analyze data from spacecraft and rover missions. It's really cool stuff. My friend John Hill, who's also presenting at TSQA, is leading the test effort for this project. They have a whole test suite written in JavaScript using Playwright that is part of the open source repository. And they're opening it up to the public so that anyone can contribute Playwright tests directly to the NASA GitHub repo. Not only would this be a great opportunity to write some open source tests, but this is an opportunity for you to actively get involved with NASA missions. I mean, we're living in some really cool future here. So for more information on getting started with that, please visit this GitHub discussions link shown here. It includes all the details for how to get started. Open testing at its finest. So far, all the ways of approaching open testing are things that we could do today, right? There's nothing earth-shattering there. Many of us are probably already doing these things, even if we didn't think of them under the phrase open testing. But where can these ideas go in the future? My mind goes back to one of the big problems with testing that I mentioned earlier. And that problem is duplication. Opening up collaboration fixes some bad habits, like and sharing components eliminates some duplication in the plumbing of test automation. But so many of our actual test cases across the industry repeat the same kinds of steps and follow the same kinds of patterns. There's a higher level of duplication, a meta duplication, I guess you could even say. Oh my gosh, I saw somebody in the chat. Avoid duplication by disabling copy and paste. Wow. I'm going to throw up some emojis for that. Oh my gosh. You go, Ken. Okay. Whew. So, for example, talking about duplication, think about any time you've ordered something from an online store. It could be Amazon, it could be Walmart, Target, whatever. I mean, I've been ordering a lot of stuff from a couple websites that sell vintage Volkswagen parts because I have a bus and a Beetle. But every single store, whether it's Target or JBugs, every single store has a virtual shopping cart. And it's the same. It's the same shopping cart. I mean, it looks different, but it's the same. You do the same things. You want to buy something, you add it to the cart. When you're done shopping, you proceed to check out, and you check out all the items in the cart. If you decide you don't want something, you remove it from the cart. Easy peasy. It's the same shopping cart. I mean, as I'm describing this, I don't even have to show an example of it. I can just show a picture of a shopping cart and describe it, and you know the checkout scene. You know the workflow. It's there in your mind. Y'all have done so much shopping, it's just intuitive. So if so many applications have the same parts, then why do we keep duplicating the tests for it? Why do we keep writing shopping cart tests? Why do we keep writing login tests? Why? Think about it. Think about how many times different teams have written nearly identical shopping cart tests across this world. Ouch. Think about how much time was wasted on this duplication of effort. It kills me. Oh my gosh. Sorry, getting a little hyped up there. Whew, take it down a notch. But it's angering. Duplication sucks. How do we fix this? I think this is something where artificial intelligence and machine learning can help. And not as a buzzword, but actually as like a meaningful thing that we can do here. What if we could develop machine learning models to learn common behaviors for apps and services? What if we could truly achieve a form of autonomous testing for common behaviors? Autonomous testing would be lit. Yeah, throw them emojis up. I love it. So what would this look like? These learning agents would look for things like standard icons and typical workflows. We could essentially create test suites for those common behaviors like login, search, shopping, payment. And as long as the AI agents can learn these things appropriately, they can learn those interactions, then they could probably go off and autonomously test those interactions. Now, I'm not sure if these tests could cover everything for a given application, but they could cover basic common behaviors for sure. Maybe that would be a quarter of all the behaviors we're testing, maybe a third, maybe even a half. Every little bit helps. So if we have that form of autonomous testing, imagine sharing those generic test suites publicly. In the same way developers have open source projects to help expedite their coding, and in the same way data scientists have open data sets to use for modeling, testers could have open test suites that they could pick up and run as applicable. Not testing tools, but actual runnable autonomous tests that could run against any application. If these kinds of test suites prove to be valuable, then prominent ones could become universally accepted bars of quality for software apps. For example, in the future, companies could download and execute run on any system tests for the apps that they're developing, in addition to tests they develop in-house. I think that could be a really cool opportunity. So, as we've covered, open testing could take many forms. It could be openness and collaboration to build better quality from the start. It could be openness and specification by example and living documentation. It could be openness in sharing tests and their results with customers and users. It could be openness in sharing tools, frameworks, and platforms. And it could be openness in building shared test suites for common application behaviors to achieve that dream of true autonomous testing. Some of these ideas might seem far-fetched or aspirational, but quite honestly, I think each of them could add lots of value to testing practices. I think every tester and every team should look at this list and ask themselves, could we try some of these things? Perhaps a team could take baby steps with better collaboration or better specification. Perhaps a team has a cool project that they built in-house that they could release as an open source project, like my team and I did with Boa Constrictor. Perhaps there's a startup idea in using machine learning to pursue autonomous testing. Who knows? Could be cool. Furthermore, maybe there are ways to achieve open testing that I haven't even thought about or shared here. What do y'all think? Everything in this presentation are just my ideas, but I'm sure y'all out there have even better ideas. We should also consider the flip side. Are there certain aspects of testing that should remain closed? My mind goes to security. Could fully open testing inadvertently reveal security vulnerabilities? Could lack of coverage in some areas welcome expedited exploitation? I don't know, but I think we should consider these consequences, and I think we should start some conversations. My main goal in today's talk is to inspire conversations like that about open testing. So here are 3 questions that I can share to help jumpstart us in talking about this. First, how is your testing today? In what ways is it already open? And in what ways is it closed? Number 2, how could your testing improve with incremental openness? We're talking baby steps here. Small improvements that you could easily achieve today. It could be as small as trying example mapping or joining a mob programming session. Number 3, how could your testing improve with radical openness? Shoot the moon, dream big, get creative. In the world of software, anything is possible. We should also remember that open testing isn't a goal unto itself. It's a means to an end, and that end is higher quality. Quality in our practices, quality in our artifacts, and ultimately quality in the software we create. We shouldn't seek openness in testing just because some guy spouted a lot of buzzwords from a keynote stage. Truth be told. At the same time, we also shouldn't brush off these ideas as too radical or idealistic, just because some guy spouted a lot of buzzwords from a keynote stage. What we should do is seek ways for perpetual improvements. Remember that this whole idea of open testing came from the actual benefits of open source code. So with that, I just want to thank you all for joining me today as I share these ideas with you. Again, my name is Andy Knight, and I'm the Automation Panda, as well as the developer advocate at Applitools. Be sure to read my blog and follow me on Twitter at Automation Panda. Also, later today after lunchtime, I'll be giving a visual testing demo as one of the speakers for this conference. So I hope you feel inspired to pursue open testing, and I'd love to spark up some of those conversations. So have fun with the rest of TSQA 2022.
Thanks, Andy. There are a couple questions. Just as points of organization, it's 9:55. So the next session starts at 10:45. And there are a couple questions on deck. We're going to stay here. If you were one of the askers, or if you have people, or if you have interest in these questions, stick around. If not, you are in control of your browser. All right. So Dave Ramjer, I'm hoping I spelled that name right. This has a couple upvotes too. How do you deal with the problem where dev and test are in different locations, meaning physically siloed as well as organizationally siloed?
Oh man, that's a toughie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing we probably learned throughout the pandemic is that being co-located makes certain things just a lot easier. You can go walk over to someone's desk, catch up in the coffee room. I think really it comes down to intentionality. And working remote, whether it's forced or just like different locations, it requires you to become very, very intentional with your teammates. both in your immediate team as well as in the cross-organizational structure that you find yourself. So what that could mean is things like, okay, maybe you need to explicitly schedule 3 Amigos meetings once a week just to get dev and test to have a dedicated time and space to interact, become face-to-face on the Zoom camera, and talk about things, right? It may sound a little silly, oh gosh, or painful that you have another meeting, but if you're not being intentional in that collaboration is not going to happen, right? And also trying to engage with folks on a more personal level as well, not just all business, not just all testing. Because let me frame it to you this way. If you're a developer and you have a bug report come in over the fence from somebody you never met, your immediate gut reaction is probably, oh, this is a pain in the butt, or oh, I don't want to deal with this, or great bug, somebody's criticized my work. I don't know what, there's a whole bunch of feelings you can feel. But if it's somebody who's coming to you and saying, hey, I found this problem, and you know them, and you trust them, and you have good rapport with them, you're much more likely to pick that up and give it serious treatment, right? So that's why I keep going back to this idea of intentionality, like come together, set up time, set up space. If it's not like a Zoom meeting that works, maybe Slack channel. I mean, I've even seen directors and managers do things where they'll just set up like a social hour once a week on Zoom if they have distributed teams. And it's literally just like a time to come in and hang out for a little bit to get to know each other better. Or maybe to just like, okay, we're going to have the Zoom up and we're going to be working, but we'll, have silly conversation on the side. Things like that go a long way.
Something like the side chat, like a good side chat is an indicator of a good meeting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right on, right on. All right. Thanks for the question, David. All right. So next up, Mark Tomlinson. I'm going to show him on stage. Or maybe he's already left. So how about security concerns for test data or intellectual property that might be inferred from looking at test code?
Exactly. Yes, that's why I brought that up as a concern at the end. There could be all these benefits from open testing, but what are the unintended consequences that could be negative? And I think these are some of it. Like I shouted out security, but intellectual property is another interesting one. So there may be, in considering this, there may be certain aspects of things where you don't fully expose certain tests, or maybe it has to go through an additional security review before you post it. So like that kind of goes back to like with my previous team, we would share those open source, or not open source. We would share those Specflow Plus Living Doc reports that would have, given when then scenarios, but we wouldn't actually share the automation code. We didn't fully share everything. So there's gradients, there's degrees. I think what I'm not saying is that everybody should just open source everything they've ever done within the testing space. I'm saying be strategic, be wise, think about it. Think about, are there advantages you can achieve with doing some of these things, and do it as appropriate for your needs.
Experimented with pulling Mark on stage. This was kind of fun. I'm sending you away.
It's a good experiment. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next up, why pandas?
Why pandas? Oh my gosh. Do y'all want the real answer to that? I mean, there's a panda back there. Check it out. So I started this whole journey, you could say, of like writing and speaking and blogging and pandaing all over the place just over 5 years ago. I had just joined LexisNexis, and I had just gotten senior level engineer for the first time. Yay, so awesome. And I'm like, what's next? And so one of my coworkers was Angie Jones, and I saw her shooting to the moon. She's like writing and speaking and blogging and doing all this crazy stuff. That's amazing. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a really shining example. And so I'm like, maybe I could do some stuff. So my thought was, well, I'm good at writing. At least I think I'm good at writing. Maybe I should start a blog. And that can be like my first little thing, because Angie writes a blog. And I see a whole bunch of other people that Angie follows on Twitter write blogs. So maybe I can write a blog. I have things to say about software testing. And I'm like, well, okay. So there are too many Andrew Knights in this world. It's a very normal name. I want something catchy, right? I want something people going to remember. And I'm like, and I threw around some names and stuff. And I mean, within the software space, if you want a good catchy name and somebody remembers, easy trick is either pick an animal or a vegetable, right? Pick an animal or a vegetable. Boom, there you go. And so
Cucumber,
I'm like, well,
python,
that's right. Yes.
panda.
Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I like pandas. You know, my wife is from China. I've actually been to Chengdu in Sichuan province and seen the pandas, small, medium, large. And I'm like, you know what? I could be the automation panda because I'm going to test automation panda. And it's like, yeah, that's a catchy name. Let's do that. Boom. Registered the domain, started writing blogs about BDD, and here we are today.
That's awesome. Thanks.
And
for
that is a true story.
I believe it. All right. Sergio asked this question earlier. I can't remember if I read it out loud. I think not. How to sell that idea of open our code in the company, especially when we still have the thought of not revealing our secrets as a company, right? Often we think of our source code as being our special sauce, and the hacker is going to come and steal our code. And
Sure.
how do you sell this company? How do you sell to your company that we should be using open source software and that it's safe and it's recommended?
Yep. So I'm going to answer this as just general code, not even just test code, but more broadly. This could be an open source project or open testing, whatever. And I will go even more abstract here. The way that you affect change in a company is you demonstrate value, right? Because value is compelling truth. If you can demonstrate and prove that something is working out and valuable, it is only rational to follow through with it. And if not, then I would say leave the company or the team because they're not following value, and that's going to kill themselves. So when it comes to opening your code, whether opening tests or opening source, right? If you have a company that is thinking about, or that is in that mindset of like, keep everything secret, don't want to share, I would say point to the value that we demonstrated. You know, like, for example, with Boa Constrictor, that was a project that started internally. It was literally just part of our test automation framework that we, or I should say solution, that we built in-house proprietarily behind closed doors at Precision Lender. It was not its own standalone project. It was just part of the whole testing with SpecFlow and Selenium WebDriver and everything. And when I implemented the screenplay pattern, I had it in its own little package in C#. And I always knew, like, there's nothing necessarily proprietary in that screenplay implementation, right? There's nothing special to Q2. There's nothing special to PL, right? So I had actually proposed to my VP, hey, you know, maybe we should open source this thing because it can share, it can be a PR win for the company, make us look good. You know, we could get contributions from the community to help us maintain it. And he poo-pooed it at first. And so I was like, dang it. Shucks. He said no without saying no, if you know what I mean, right? Which, I mean, I understand. But then like a year and a half later, my chief products officer came to me and said, how can we achieve radical transparency with our customers? And I said, well, you can open source this project. He's like, do it. Okay, now I have the green light, and boom, 2 months later, it happens. So it was because the new leadership saw value in that openness. And I didn't even have to implant that. He came to me with that value. So boom, here you go. So always try to be demonstrating this value. You know, like I said, the three things that I have found is that it helps me be a better developer, helps me learn, helps me be a better developer, and helps me be a better maintainer. And I'm sure there's other benefits you could draw from open source as well. Start thinking about those kinds of things and use that to enact change around you.
Awesome. All right. Next up is Annie Chu. I think that's how I pronounce it. And I love some of the commentary that went into here. James Smith, who happens to be on my team, I always like to see his responses because they're usually pretty crafty and smithy. So the question is, what would testing look like with the use of AI? People talk about self-healing in testing. What do they mean?
Okay. So right now, where we're at within the testing world and AI, machine learning, is 90% buzzword and baloney and 10% actual like value delivered to testing effort. Like you're
It's
this is
true.
real talk. What
It's
am I?
true. I
Yes,
know.
it's
I know.
true.
Like if I had a CEO once say, well, can't you just do an automate one and do a truth table and then the rest is magic? And I'm like, well, you can build a vacuum which automates the process of cleaning the floor, but you still have to push the vacuum.
Yep, exactly. So real talk here. I mean, most of the time when people talk about AI, there's a lot of BS. You kind of have to cut through it. But there is 10% that is actually real and valuable, right? And I wouldn't say we're in the early days of AI anymore. I'd say we're starting to mature because some of the testing products and solutions that use AI are actually delivering real value. So, for example, here, the self-healing locators or self-healing. I shouldn't insert locator there, but that's usually what it ends up being. So when people talk about self-healing test scripts, usually they're talking about web UI tests, end-to-end, going through a browser. When you automate these tests, you need locators to pinpoint elements on the page that you're interacting with. And one of the frustrations has been, developer changed the page, therefore my locator's broken, therefore my test crashes. Right. So the idea of a self-healing test or specifically a self-healing locator is one that even if the developer changes the page, the test automation will be smart enough to figure out another locator for the target element that was there before. Right. So there's some AI techniques that might go into that for learning if it's like a visual thing, or it could just be a giant table of locators to switch off. Another valuable use of AI that is actually legit. Applitools, right? I don't want to plug my own company too much. I'll be plugging it at 12:30, but visual testing, where you take a baseline snapshot and you take checkpoint snapshots and you do a visual diff. Applitools doesn't just do a pixel to pixel compare because that would always be off. Applitools actually uses visual AI to pinpoint things on the page that are different that a human would detect. Like, a button went missing, right? And there are different filters for things like, you don't care about color, you don't care about text, you just care about layout. We can look at those kinds of things. So that would be another example where AI is actually delivering real value today. Where is this going? My hope is that it's going towards full autonomous testing, right? For example, with Applitools, the visual AI, the comparisons, that's autonomous verification. Where most companies and tools are struggling right now is autonomous interaction. That's what I was saying. It's like you have to have some sort of AI agent learn your app and do a workflow like checking out at an online store or something. That's where I think in the next decade we ought to go, because what we could do is we could have these AI agents learn basic app behaviors, whether generally, or specifically in the context of whatever app you're testing. Learn enough about the app with the help of human testers side by side, where the AI is not so much like the executor of all things, but rather a coach, a helper, an assistant, where the AI can learn the app and suggest, hey, I looked at this app and I think these could be possible good test cases for these behaviors I have identified. Human tester, do you want me to run these or not? Right? Because, they might have a banana peel moment where they're like, what is the capital of Canada? Banana, right? When they totally screw up and fall on their face. So long story short, most AI talk today is BS. Some of it's real. Focus on what delivers value. In the future, let's move towards autonomous testing. And final plug, I actually gave a talk on autonomous testing about 2 weeks ago. Hit me up for the link afterwards. I'll share it.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to do 2 more if you've got it in you. I know that we've got you talking a long time.
Keep it coming. I'm good all day. I got my bubble.
Okay. I mean, we'll go all day, Andy. We could talk quality all day.
You dang
All
right.
right. So let's see. This was one of my favorite questions. Any advice on how we solve the apathy issue, even if we open our tests? Like, if I know what I'm going to test and I have a set of test results, how do I make anybody else care that I wrote these tests and that the results have something behind them?
Oh gosh, I wish I had a good answer to that.
I know.
This is an age-old question, and it's not just dev versus test. It's like my thing versus everyone else's thing.
Yeah.
So how do you solve the problem specifically in the testing space? some people never going to change.
Okay.
Don't give them your energy, right? I hate to say this, but there are jerks and a-holes out there. There are people who are not nice to work with, and there's
Are
a
you
whole different.
serious?
Yes, and oh gosh, I see the emojis flying. And I hate to say this, but like, I mean, I haven't been doing software forever. You know, I've been in this field for like a decade to a decade and a half. But I mean, in that time, I've had to deal with some people, man, and it's like, gosh, oh, I have some one of the reasons why I want to help people, like, and I try to mentor people and give all the advice and assistance I can, is because I don't want people to suffer in some of the ways I've had to suffer, whether that's through technical challenge or people being jerks or whatever. And so, like, you can try to change people who are just jerks. They're the kind of things you want to mitigate and kind of stay away. Find the people who are actually reasonable. Find folks who there is hope for. Again, this is real talk. I don't feel like I'm bashing anybody, but like, oof. What I have found in the different organizations I've worked with is that when you start to deliver high quality work in the testing and automation space, you get the spectrum of people who notice. You get some people who don't give a damn. You get some people who are like, that's really cool. You get people who are thankful, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have a safety net. And then you get the people who are like, this is heckin' awesome. I want to join in, right?
Yeah.
Focus your
Focus
energy
on
on the
that
people who
last
care.
group.
Yes, exactly. Because they're going to be your champions. They're going to be the ones who are not only going to appreciate what you do, but start to champion what you do, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be the ones who are watching your results and sharing that with the team. And that's going to help you shift into those spaces more easily. Like I mentioned my friend, Steve Hernandez in the talk. He was like that. He was a software engineer who became a software engineer in test because I showed him how to do things like example mapping. I showed him how to automate tests, and it blew his mind. He's like, this is amazing. I want to do this for my full-time job. So you can't make everybody care, but you can start to make more people care. And showing that excellence, bringing people in, taking time, being intentional, demonstrating value, helping them to fish for themselves rather than giving them fish, if I can use the cliche. That's where you can start to solve that apathy issue.
Yeah, I love that answer. All right. And I don't know if you noticed, this was from David Lake, and he's in Essex. So you're hitting UK with that response.
Lit.
All right. This will be our last one from Esther. And Esther is a regular attendee for our meetups. So I love to see her questions. By autonomous, meaning the test for the shopping cart, do you mean self-contained, or is there also some agent that can execute the tests independently?
When I say autonomous, I mean that a test will write itself, or rather there's some agent or some mechanism or some algorithm that is generating the tests and executing them. Like right now, when we talk about test automation, right? It's it's kind of funny. Like, you know, I spent most of my career doing test automation, and I was always thinking like, oh yeah, that's great because I'm automating the tests so they can run by themselves. But the dark truth is developing test automation is still entirely manual. Why? Because you need a human like me or you or anyone to go in and figure out what the test steps should be, write them out in given when then format, right? And then to automate the test in whatever code or tool you're using. You know, if you're using something codeless like Selenium IDE, or if you're using SpecFlow with boa constrictor, right? You still have to manually create the test. The idea behind autonomous testing is there is some sort of AI agent or learning thing that you can point it at an app, or you point it at an API, and it looks at the DOM and it looks at the responses, and boom, it figures out, these are the behaviors in play, and suggests them to a human tester to say, do you want me to test these things? And the human tester says, yes, no, yes. And then says, okay, I'll go test it, and goes run it. That's the dream of autonomous testing, where we don't have to sit down and manually write every single one of our tests, that we could have something help us generate these positive and negative cases, and then just have it automatically go run them. That is the dream. That's what I mean by autonomous testing.
All right, so we're going to close the session here in a couple minutes. Mark, Gian, Jenny, take these questions to the lounge, set up a table, have this conversation. Andy, I'm sure we'll pop into the lounge at some point today. I know I'll jump in there. I have opinions on these things too. So thank you all for starting your day this way. Next session starts in about 30 minutes. Go do the things you need to do. Get your next snack. And we'll see you soon. All of these sessions are recorded. We are finishing our live stream right now. The remainder of these sessions will be available. Like if you can't get to one that you want to, because there's two and you're like, man, I want to see both of those. All of the sessions will be recorded and released at the end of the conference tomorrow. So have a great time. Go meet some people. Go and check out the sponsor booths. Catalan is here. Tricentis is here. Applitools is here. Oh yeah. Gotta make sure. Label is here. So check them all out. Get in there and have a great day. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Andy. See you later.